Welcome to Inspiring Working Lives, the Morgan Hunt podcast where we explore public sector leadership journeys. From honest chats about career highs and lows, to lessons and wisdom to inspire the next generation of leaders that will shape our society.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Morgan Hunt Inspiring Working Lives podcast. My name is Dan Taylor. Today's guest is Angela Joyce, Chief Executive Officer of Capital City College, CCC. Angela Joyce became CEO of Capital City College in January 2024, leading London's largest further education provider with over 35,000 students. She began her career as a teacher before moving into college leadership, and at 34 became the UK's youngest female college CEO at Peterborough Regional College. From 2015 to 2023, she led Warwickshire College Group, achieving degree awarding powers, successful mergers, and a Queen's Anniversary Prize. At Capital City College, Angela is driving a one college ethos and a 5-year strategy focused on growth, efficiency, and improved student outcomes. She has contributed nationally through roles with Landex, WorldSkills UK, the QAA, and the CBI, and is now a companion of the Chartered Management Institute and a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Further Education. Beyond her professional career, Angela is a keen equestrian, actively competing in eventing disciplines including dressage, show jumping and cross-country. A former European cross-country runner, she brings the same drive and resilience to her bold leadership style. Angela, thank you so much for coming to Morgan Hunt today. It's great to see you here.
It's a pleasure. It's nice to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, well, Angela, we always start by talking about people's childhood. We're interested in your childhood, find out a bit more about it. But also, during your childhood, if you had any career aspirations.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my childhood wasn't particularly interesting, I don't think. Born and raised in Buckinghamshire, had a very traditional kind of education journey. So Buckinghamshire, we still have the 12 plus. It's not because I'm really ancient. We do still have the 12 plus. So GCSEs, 12 plus, grammar school, on to university. So quite kind of traditional in terms of my own education journey, which is perhaps a bit different from some people in FE in that I kind of came a very traditional route. And I guess along the way through my childhood, I can remember some of my career ambitions. At middle school, it was to be a jockey. So my love of horses was there from a very early age. My legs kept growing. So I don't think my jockey aspirations were ever very real. Then I moved to spend most of grammar school, most of secondary school, wanting to be a vet.
Right.
And it was probably when I was kind of steering towards my A-level selection, still with being a vet in mind, that it was my father actually who reminded me I don't really like needles. And that would be quite a hindrance being a vet. So kind of parked the vet idea. I did my A-levels. One of my A-levels was English, so decided that actually I'd quite like to be a journalist. And probably spent my A-level period of time kind of thinking, right, I'll be a journalist. Off to university. Athletics was a big part of my life then, so I went off to Loughborough. And somehow along my journey while I was an undergrad, with no military connections in my family at all, decided I wanted to be a PT officer in the Royal Air Force. So to be a PT officer, they suggested that you had a PGCE. So studied my postgraduate certificate in education, went off to officer selection at RAF Cranwell. They said, here, sign for a 15-year stint. And that was actually the end of that, and I thought, gosh, 15 years seems a very, very long time. When I reflect now, I'm not sure that I probably cut out for a military career anyway, so I think it was probably the right thing. But that's kind of my educational journey and a little bit of my childhood aspirations.
Gosh, so did you grow up with horses? Did you have them around?
Yeah, I think I was probably on a horse before I could walk.
Really?
I can't remember horses not being in my life. So, and I think having any animal for a young person is a good thing. It teaches you all sorts of levels of responsibility and so on. And I was very much brought up that, to have horses and ponies and animals, then, they need a lot of care and a lot of attention. So my early memories is, yes, riding lots, of course, falling off a lot, which when you're young, it's quite good fun to fall off and get back on. It hurts a bit more when you get older. But also obviously looking after them and caring for them. So yeah, I don't think I've ever been without a horse since I can remember.
Okay. So going through the education and athletics is clearly a big part for you here. What were you always running, competitively?
So my athletics career actually started quite late for an athlete, in that when I was at secondary school, we had this Friday morning and you could choose an activity. And when I started, one of the activities was cross country. So of course I had assumed it was cross country on horseback, because that was what I was familiar with.
Of course.
And much to my surprise, it didn't involve a horse, it involved my own legs. But found I was quite good at it. So I actually was at secondary school before I kind of started, but was kind of at the front of the pack from the word go. So I kind of stumbled into running, and then was doing my athletics and the horses together for a long period of time, and then unfortunately the day before the national championships I got kicked by a horse with a rather nasty wound that put me out of the nationals. And then it was kind of, okay, one needs to take some priority. So for a period of time, athletics became my priority. And I was training at a club in Harrow. At my peak, running 100 miles a week
Wow.
to get myself in shape to be a distance runner. Yeah.
Superb. Was that Harrow Harriers? That's the famous one, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think that's a men's club. So it was actually
Right,
Parkside,
okay.
which
Right.
is now merged, I think. But the Parkside was the ladies club, drove into Harrow on the Hill to train while my dad was driving me to start with, and then I was. So I actually learned to drive in London as well, oddly. So quite a commitment, I think, to be involved. But I had a fabulous time, really, from an athletics perspective. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure we'll come back to talk about your sporting endeavours. So from university, you decided not to take the 15 years with the Army. Was it Army? Yeah, it was Army.
Royal Air Force.
Air Force.
Yeah.
Got to get it right. Yeah, the Air Force. So how did this path lead you to education at some point?
I can say, you're probably sensing it wasn't entirely planned. So did my PGCE. I did a PGCE in English and physical education, so a dual subject. Didn't enjoy my teaching practice at all. Actually, it wasn't a good experience. So a couple of my placements, the schools weren't especially welcoming. You were also obviously under constant scrutiny. You were having to kind of do assessments and teach, if you like, and do the practicals the way that the textbooks were telling you to, and didn't particularly enjoy my teaching practice at all. But when my ambitions for the Royal Air Force, quite short-lived, didn't come to fruition, I went back home. Got under my father's feet, which that's not a good move. And my father one day said to me, "Aren't you a qualified teacher? So maybe go and teach." A lot of my friends were still in Leicestershire from university days, so I moved back to Leicestershire. Actually, my first job was a maternity cover, teaching English in a 14 to 19 school, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So rewarding. Seeing a young person at various stages. I was teaching English, so understand actually Shakespeare and seeing how actually, you supported a young person to go through that process of understanding why we're studying Shakespeare, what it means, what the story's really all about, the power of it, and being able to perhaps teach in my way, rather than perhaps the way that the textbook told you to teach, and just seeing young people flourish. So so that was my kind of entry. And as I say, once I'd started teaching, I think probably one of my big drivers is I love to see people succeed. I want people to be the best they can be. So when you're teaching, that's exactly what you're doing. You're encouraging people to be the best they can be, to develop themselves, to succeed, to have skills that are transferable. So I guess that was, I don't think it was a calling, but that's how it happened for me. Yeah.
You lit the touch paper. Classroom in Leicestershire. And then you were off. And this is going to be the future for you. And there's a passion there.
Yeah, definitely. So I taught in schools for a while, and then actually a job came up in an FE college. I'll be really honest, my then school colleagues perhaps advised me not to necessarily go into FE, that it's not as structured, the career isn't as structured in FE as it is in the schools sector. But I thought, well, I'll try it. I enjoyed the post-16 work. I thought I'll try FE and probably go back into schools, and here I am. So I never went back. I think FE for me, it's the smallest part of the UK's education sector in terms of number, but it's the part of the education system that has the widest reach. There's no other part of the education system that can work with young people from the age of 14 through to 90 years of age, to work with employers, to work with apprentices. There's no other part. Schools and universities are great and they have their place, but nothing does what a college does, and I think that's what I realised.
Yes, and it's crazy that I don't know if overlook's the right word, but it's such an important component part of the UK education structure. And I think with the challenges the country faces at the moment, it should be more recognised, and there should be more talk about it and how we can do more with the college sector.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's, colleges are fabulous. I mean, the 3 colleges that I've led, they're all different. The context is different, but they all play such an important role in the communities that they serve. And I think, we should celebrate what colleges stand for. I think we've got much better at it, much better. But genuinely, it's as a career, as a journey, there's such fabulous institutions full of amazing people doing amazing work with students of all ages, of all stages. Career changers, career starters. There is. I always say there is something fabulous going on in the institution I lead every single day of the week, and there's not that many jobs where you can actually sit back and just know that something somewhere fabulous is going on, and that somebody's life is being transformed having come through the doors of the college, and we need to say that boldly. I think more and more.
And whilst it's lifelong learning, I'm guessing college, but there is that focus on those pivotal late teenage years, isn't there, where potentially if it wasn't for the intervention of a college, dreadful things could happen, but instead there's little miracles going on all the time.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not a fan of the whole second chance, third chance. I don't believe that. I just think we're all different. And I think for lots of young people, coming to college is the right thing. I think it's a different environment, it's a different way of learning, it's different subject matters. And I think we've got about 10,000 16 to 18 year olds in Capital City College. What we're doing with them is going to really inform their next steps massively, and it's quite a scary responsibility when you think about it and you say it out loud, but it's incredibly rewarding. And I know the team at Capital City just want to see those 10,000 young people take their next step with as most equipped they possibly can with qualifications, but also with wider skills, you know, to launch themselves into whatever career they decide to do.
Yes, yeah. So it's fabulous. So let's talk about that journey now into leadership. So you started off teaching English at the college. How did that career blossom from there?
I think I need to be challenged. I'm one of those people that the more challenged I am, the better I perform. So I think for me, it was just, so what's next? So I can do that. What's next? And I think my whole career has been that. You know, what's the next challenge? There's never been I must be one of these by the time I'm whatever age. I've never been driven by that, but just driven by actually, what's the next challenge? How can I stretch myself? And so I think the journey for me was probably based on that, and seeking opportunities and not being afraid to put myself forward, you know, apply for roles and do extra things along the way. And I think that's really important. You know, you can't sit back and wait to be noticed. You've got to put yourself sometimes in places where you maybe feel a bit awkward, a bit less comfortable, but that's how you move onwards and upwards, and that's how I think you grow as an individual. So yeah, for me it was, as I say, in schools I had some extra responsibilities in schools, alongside the teacher role. Then moved to my first further education role was at Moulton College in Northamptonshire.
Right.
And I have to say, an amazing opportunity which did help my journey hugely. Moulton is a land-based college, and they decided to diversify into sport. So the role was to establish a brand new curriculum area in a college, which had all the challenges and all the opportunities. You know, when I first started, we had just fields, so no sports facilities. So there was me and a first cohort of 10 students, and we did a huge amount of cross-country running, which I enjoyed. I'm not so much sure that the students did.
Right.
But yeah, we just did lots of running because we had lots and lots of fields, and I had to drive the minibus because, you know, to put them on a minibus to take them to the local sports centre and, you know, to do the practical side. But over my time there, you know, we built facilities, we designed the curriculum, we marketed the provision, the student numbers grew, we brought obviously members into the team and developed a whole department. So I have to say that role was huge, I think, in my learning, because there's not many times you get an opportunity to set something up from scratch.
No.
So that was my first, and then, as I say, I think into senior management and kind of progressing through the ranks.
Wow. So that wonderful opportunity of going in to teach English, but then this passion that you have for athletics just marries together with it, and this wonderful creative opportunity.
Yeah, as I say, I mean, I think sport's always been there, and because I qualified with English as my major and physical education as my minor subject, so I kind of always taught a little bit of PE on the side in school. Right. You know, and it's great. And the great thing about actually being a PE teacher is that you get thrown into all sorts of things, because that's the nature of a PE teacher. So yeah, I think it just, I think coming into further education, both of them, you know, both the subjects did me well, you know, and obviously I came in from a schools background, so teaching in a classroom was very, very straightforward for me. So yeah, it just kind of came together.
Yeah, that pathway from schools to FE, it's not often it goes on. I mean, it does happen, but it works so well for you. Do you think there should be more of a route for people coming from standard schools education to colleges?
Yeah, I think so. It's a curiosity to me as to why there aren't more people that do that. Notwithstanding my personal experience was that I was advised against it. But I think it's curious that there isn't that kind of transition, because you know, if you enjoy teaching, you know, the sixth formers or post-16 students in school, then obviously colleges are full of A-level students and BTEC students doing the same thing. So I think there are some challenges. The pay differential is a factor in there, sadly.
Yeah.
Which obviously that pay differential, certainly is there. There's national scales and things in teachers. We've seen what the government has done in terms of funding, pay increases for teachers in schools and not in colleges. None of that helps. But for me, the reward of further education and colleges is greater. Now, we're all different. I'm not saying that schools doesn't give you a reward, but for me, my time in schools, I taught GCSE and A-level, and you teach GCSE syllabus, you teach the A-level syllabus, and you do that on a 2-year cycle. Further education, there's a lot more ability to adapt, to innovate, to work with employers, to inform curriculum design, to you really think about what curriculum you're offering, and does it lead to jobs? Does it match the local economy? What is the next step for these young people? And I think the facilities in colleges, far more industry linked and so on. So, I think there should be more of it, and it's a bit of a curiosity as to why it doesn't happen and why I'm unusual in that sense. Yeah.
Is there a stigma there?
Maybe. Not one I want to admit to.
No, it shouldn't be. It's the bottom line. Yeah. No. Okay. Great. So we're building up to this sort of landmark moment for you where there's this CEO job at Peterborough, and you become the youngest female CEO in further education history. Can you tell us what led to that? How did that come about?
Okay. So I'd been at Peterborough about 18 months prior as Vice Principal for Curriculum and Quality.
Yes.
When the principal job came up, again, it was my first senior role, so my first vice principal role. The college needed a series of improvements from a quality perspective, so I'd gone in there, done what needed doing really to put the college on its quality improvement journey, and the principal job came up, and you have to put yourself in that situation, it was great, because obviously most people say it's harder to progress internally and be the internal candidate, and I think sometimes it is. For me in that situation, I think I knew the institution, I knew it really well, and I think it worked in my favour that I knew what needed to be done really. 18 months as vice principal and then into the principal role, and the age thing, it's interesting because I've been around a long time now, and it's interesting that people ask me more about it now than probably they did at the time. I remember doing an interview with The Guardian at the time when I was appointed at Peterborough, but it maybe didn't register. It wasn't a primary driver for me, obviously, but now people are asking me about it more, and I think what I would say is that I don't think any of us want to be defined by a characteristic. So I was young and I was female, but that wasn't who I wanted to be known for. I wanted to be me. So I think it's about being who you are, but being aware. And I think one of the most there was two stories, I think. One was a young member of staff at Peterborough who worked in reception, actually, who called me one morning and just said, "Angela, you're an inspiration." And I said, "Don't be daft." And she said, "No, because, we look at you and we can see that it's possible." And that was one of those moments where I thought, actually, don't lose sight of the fact that, maybe because I am a bit different, it can be an inspiration to people. And my other memory when I was recently principal was my first AOC conference as principal. And nobody spoke to me. And I'm fairly sure people looked around the room and thought, who's brought their PA with them? And that was the vibe I got. But do you know what? It just made me chuckle inside, and pushed me probably to try harder, I'm a big believer that relationships are built on trust and respect, it's not about your age, it's not about your gender or anything else. It's about trust and respect. So I think it probably just drove me on to try a bit harder and to make sure that at some point people didn't see me for age or gender or anything else. They just could see that I'd earned my stripes. I'd got the respect and trust of my team and could lead an institution.
This episode is brought to you by Morgan Hunt, a public sector recruitment agency with over 30 years of experience. Whether you're looking for your next role or growing your team, we match purpose-driven people with organisations making a real difference. Visit morganhunt.com to find out how Morgan Hunt inspires working lives.
Wonderful. Okay. So personally, there was no hang-up personally. I mean, there was some odd reactions to you, but you didn't feel a burden brought on by that position. It was a case of that I want to do this job and let me at it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's about what you do. It's not about, I think one of my messages is always to be yourself. Authenticity is really important because you can look at the best leaders and go, I want to emulate them, I want to be just like them, but you have to be you, and you have to do it your way. So I think for me, I wasn't blind to it, but it can't hold you back, it can't define you. You have to be you, and you have to be confident in your own abilities. And for me, at Peterborough, I had a marvellous team. You build a strong team and you work with people, and as I say, you earn the trust and respect and kind of what people look like or how many years they've been alive really shouldn't matter.
Yes. That's so true. I worked for a big corporate for a number of years, and I felt there was this sort of cookie cutter shape that you had to fit through to progress in this organisation, and it wasn't until I found an organisation that allowed me to be me that I could really thrive in it and enjoy it. So it's so important, isn't it? It's about that job and how we lead the people we look after on a day-to-day basis. That's fascinating. Okay. One of the things we see a lot today is challenges. It almost seems that challenges are more present and sort of tougher than they've ever been to a certain extent. You clearly, in your experience, have led colleges through times of great challenge. Is there any that spring to mind at all?
Leadership is all about challenges. It's all about overcoming challenges. I guess lots. For Peterborough, the big challenge was around quality. Warwickshire, the big challenge was finances. I think most institutions have, one particular challenge. But I think for me, the greatest challenge of my leadership experience today is actually being a leader during the COVID-19 pandemic, which was a completely different set of challenges. And in a way that I guess as leaders, I think it's one in 100 years, isn't it? But a pandemic, it's not a leadership challenge that everyone's going to get to experience. But that for me was the standout one because it's so different. I think obviously you've got to make decisions all the time, but in the pandemic there were decisions at pace because obviously government guidance was changing. There was an expectation on the education sector and a need to continue to educate young people, but everybody was sat at home. I think there was a real need around, brought out a whole new layer of empathy and understanding because I was really worried not only about all the students that I was responsible for, but also all the staff. I was sat comfortably at a desk with Wi-Fi, and able to do my role, but not everybody was in that situation. And I think that concern around people being, very remote and alone, and all the feelings that people were having during the pandemic was something that as a leader you become very acutely aware of. So I think that was and I think for me, when I remember when I got the job at Peterborough, everyone said, "Oh, leadership is lonely, Angela. You'll need some." I've never felt lonely in my leadership journey, but actually in the pandemic, when everyone is at home and you're just sat in a room with decisions to be made around, the safety and well-being of your staff, the safety and well-being of your students. For us at Warwickshire, 40% of our income was commercial, so that was wiped out overnight, as it was for so many businesses. But for a college, that's quite a heavy dependency on commercial income. So all of a sudden, 40% of your revenue just goes. That's quite a worry. But you're trying to reassure everybody at the same time as having a really big organisational worry. So that was my biggest test so far, I think.
Okay, so COVID was obviously one of those things. There wasn't a procedure manual for it, was there? I mean, it just literally happened, and there was no experience in the organisations to deal with it. So how did you deal with that first sort of note that, okay, we're locking down now, nobody can go to the college anymore?
I think you have a business continuity plan, but you don't actually think that one day it's going to be, right, everybody go home, take what you need, because the doors are locking, and it was literally like that. I mean, it was like that for everybody, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It wasn't unique for a college, but yeah, I mean, I think the comms, the comms and the communications from the moment lockdown came was the most important thing. Having the mechanism for communication, both to students, to parents, to employers, and to staff was the most important thing. And communication throughout and during, for all of us as leaders, visibility is a big challenge. But when everybody's locked down, visibility is. The challenge of visibility takes on a whole new level. So I think for me it was about being visible. I sent a daily update. I message to people all the time. I talk to my team every day. I think you needed to have those mechanisms. And I was very lucky because actually, whilst it was a huge challenge, I went into it with a team. We were very established and we knew each other really well. So I was fortunate. And then again, it comes back to that trust and respect and that relationship. We'd worked together for a period of time. We had trust and respect for each other. So we kind of fell into step and found the way to make sure we were communicating in the right way. We were telling people the information they needed. We did have mechanisms to make decisions. And I think those were probably the most important things, just that constant kind of messaging and reassurance to people that we were there.
It was a great learning experience as well, because everybody's looking at you and nobody knows what tomorrow's going to bring. So there must be a kind of openness in that communication as well, and a level of authenticity in terms of, look, I don't know here, but this is what we're going to do to get through it. Was that part of the leadership style during that time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm a big believer in being authentic. And I'm a big believer in kind of open and transparency as well. So that's my natural style. Ask me anything, and I'll do my best to answer it. I've always been one of those people that will put myself in front of any audience and answer questions to the best of my ability. I think openness is really important, and I think through the pandemic, yes, I think people needed to know, the style of your communication and what you were saying and how you were saying it. You had to be really true to you and let people know that you were understanding how they were feeling. I think was really important. I didn't realise at the time, but after the pandemic and when the world returned to some sort of level of normality, that apparently had become a phrase of Angela says, and it was in essence because people were relying on me to interpret the government guidance and which was often quite late at night, if you remember.
Yeah.
But I would interpret it and send a communication about kind of what it meant. Now, I think if somebody had told me there was an Angela Says during the pandemic, I might have been more concerned. But actually afterwards, I thought, well, that's important. That's a demonstration of what leadership is all about, is that if people were waiting for my message to understand, what the guidance was and what we were doing next, then, that's a pressure and a reward at the same time.
Okay, yes. And then now when you look at your current role at CCC, what are the challenges that the organisation faces now? And is there a kind of, do you have a process to help you work through those challenges in any way?
Yeah, Capital City is a great institution. We're London's largest further education college. We're one of the big three in the country as well. So Capital City's in a great place. I think sometimes we're London's best kept secret. So we're working hard to kind of make sure everybody knows who we are. We've done a change of brand. We're getting working more as one organisation as opposed to the legacy colleges that form the group. But I think for us it's onwards and upwards. I think over 35,000 students, all ages and stages, but we're constantly reviewing curriculum, offer, thinking about where next, what do we do. We've got specialist centres as part of the portfolio, so how do we do more to connect with the industries that we serve. What are the new opportunities out there in terms of driving kind of non-government income. I think is something that's important for colleges to think about, because government funding is always going to be under pressure. So thinking a bit more commercially about the way we do things is really important. So it's in a great place with some fantastic campuses across North and Central London. Our locations are enviable for sure. Yeah. But I think, to answer your question around kind of my approach to challenges, so for me, first of all, it's about finding the facts. So I'm kind of very evidence-based. So give me information, help me understand the challenge and what it is. And then ideally some time to kind of reflect and understand that, which sometimes you can take as much time as you need. Sometimes, you have to make decisions fairly quickly, but I'm fortunate in that I don't need too much sleep. So as long as I've got some time to digest the facts, get my head around them, that's a really important part of processing a challenge for me. And then I think, I'm one of those people that always thinks in the long term. So if you're overcoming a challenge or you're making a decision, what's the impact now, but also what's the impact of your decision in 5, 10, 20 years' time? So a big part of my kind of process is always about that long-term perspective. Why are we doing this now? And actually, are we going to regret doing it that way in however long? And I think sometimes that's an important part of leadership, is always having that eye to the future, and that eye to, ideally you want someone to look back at the decisions you've made and understand why you made those decisions. Because if you've got an eye to the long term, then I think, generally speaking, people will go, actually, yeah, that was the right decision, because the long-term positive effects of it will be evident.
Yeah, so that building that vision, which people are following, and getting through some difficult stuff to reach the higher ground, effectively. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. When you're talking about the college, when I think of Capital City College, I always think of some of the wonderful alumni of the college as well. There's some amazing people out there who will be very high profile, who've been through the college.
Yeah, we are. Yes. One or two celebrity chefs, for sure, which is one of the things that I think most people know is obviously our Westminster campus. I think I'm safe to say is the UK's UK's finest culinary arts college. There might be one in Birmingham that challenges that, but hey, I'm going to claim it.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, we've got some fantastic alumni doing amazing things. You know, we've got students involved in London Fashion Week and doing amazing things now who, you know, I'm sure, you know, there's always going to be alumni, you know, coming out of a college of the scale and reach of capital city. But yeah, we have got some very enviable alumni already, for sure.
Okay, so through this conversation, Angela, there's been a lot of talk about sport. How do you think that's sort of played out in terms of professional life?
Yeah, I think sport's great in so many ways for people. I mean, there's, you know, and again, I guess I'm biased, but I think it is. I think for me, how has it played into my professional life? Sport's about being the best you can be, and that's what drives me. I want to be the best I can be. I want the institution I lead to be the best it can be. I want the people around me to be the best they can be, and I want our students to be the best they can be. And I think that probably comes from that kind of sports mindset, because you train to be the best. Now, obviously, you hope by being the best that you win, but it's not always about winning. And actually, when you're a distance runner like I was, it's a lot about mind over matter. You know, and it's about the mental resilience and beating your PB. It's not about necessarily beating everybody else. So my drive is, my competitiveness is against myself, not necessarily against anyone else. But it's certainly, for me, has driven that. You know, if you have a coach in sport, and the coach's job is to make you the best that they can make you, so be the best you can be. For sure, for me, resilience. I mean, I guess being a distance athlete, probably more than most, because when you run a 10k on the track, it's not unusual that people watch the start and the finish and you see the stadium empty in the middle, because it's quite boring to watch people going around like 10,000 meters, you know. So you kind of are aware of those sorts of things, but the resilience, I think, is an important part of that. And you work hard. You know, sport has discipline and hard work, because actually if you don't train, then you're not going to improve. So I think for me, probably some of my work ethic, yeah, I'm sure my parents were a big part of that too, but I think my work ethic comes from that sporting background, where, you know, if you miss some training sessions, it's only your own performance that's affected. So you've got to have that discipline to keep trying, keep working, and keep training. Again, to succeed, to be the best that you can be. So I think that's probably how it plays out in my professional life. I think it's just the way that my brain works and who I am. And as I say, I can remember in my early days going for interviews and people were kind of going, oh, so you're a sports person, so you're really competitive. It doesn't quite work like that always. I think most sports people would say, actually, they're just, you know, it's all about themselves and pushing themselves more than it is about being competitive with everybody that's around them.
Got it. Okay. And you were competing at the weekend. You were show jumping.
Yeah, I compete most weekends. Yeah, really? yeah. So although the horse is the athlete now, I'm the pilot. You see, so my job's slightly different. Yeah.
I'm sure it's got a physical component to it, but is that a release as well? Because clearly, working life will have pressures and what have you. Can you just forget about it when you're on the horse? I assume you can't think about anything else other than what the horse is doing when you're on top. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's the other thing for me. I mean, I think it's one of the things that I've benefited from throughout my working life, really, is that I've always had an outlet, and I'm a big fan of everybody having an outlet, and sport's mine. You know, and I think, yeah, we have to have some downtime. I have a brain that never stops working, and it rarely focuses on one thing, which is a strength and a weakness all at the same time. But yeah, for me, you know, with what I do on the horse, if I am not fully concentrating, on the fence that's in front of us, then we are going to end up in a heap. It is the one time for me when I am solely focused on that, and it does my mental well-being a huge amount of good, to go out and, like you say, have a complete stress release, and we're lucky in this country. We've got lots of green fields, and to go out to a competition with a horse and focus on that for a day, for half a day, is certainly my downtime. Yeah, my husband would prefer me to take up knitting or something slightly less risky, but maybe that will come. But at the moment, it's still out with the horses. Yeah.
Final question then, Angela. I'm going to talk about advice. And if there was somebody sat in a college somewhere, maybe in their mid-30s, and they don't know how to make it into leadership, but they feel there's something inside them they've got to offer, what advice would you give to them?
My first thing I would say is go for it.
Yeah.
If you feel ready for the next step, then make the next step. That's what I did. If you feel ready, then you probably are. So go for it. I think for me, I think I would say be authentic. So just do it your way. Be courageous. I would also say. I would say know yourself. Be ready to know yourself. So sometimes I think we wait until we're absolutely perfect and we think we know everything we need to know, but just know yourself, know what you don't know, and know where you'll need support, because actually leadership isn't about knowing all the answers. It's about the ability to work with a team to find the answers together. So know yourself, know what your weaknesses are, and know what you need to do to address them. I think be brave, be courageous, be curious as well. It's we never stop learning. So be curious, and when the opportunities arise, if you're interested, just be curious, just go for it and explore it, because you'll learn something. And I guess the last thing I would say is, we all like to learn from the best, and we like to look at people who we think that's an amazing role model, and aren't they brilliant, and I want to learn from them. But you can learn lessons from everybody. Just look at all the people around you, because you don't need the perfect role model. There's all sorts of people that will be influencing you. And certainly for me, some of my best lessons I probably learned by watching people and thinking, I don't want to do it that way. And those were probably some of the lessons that stayed with me the longest.
That's really powerful, isn't it? That there's always a lesson out there, even in the worst of times, or I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Angela, it's been an absolute delight to have you today and hear your story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us, and I'm sure this message will go on to inspire others in the future.
All right. Thanks very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Inspiring Working Lives, the Morgan Hunt podcast, driving positive change and helping you to grow your career. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next inspiring conversation. For more insights, opportunities, and updates, head to morganhunt.com.